Things that you don't want them to get away with. I'll try to give all the details. First, about me. I've recently been made redundant from job I'd had for 12 years. It hit hard and I've taken a lower paid job to make sure we can afford the rent, bills, food, etc. My wife was in a good job and left to move to a new role on more money. Now, being completely honest, I've been struggling with self-esteem issue and such since the redundancy. Nothing major, but certainly lost confidence and feeling pretty worthless. All this follows on from a family argument which has been fairly nasty going on over the last year with some, unfairly, aimed at my wife. Anyway, we have children and my wife had a tough time with baby blues and her friendships have dwindled. She still has friends but doesn't really see them often, certainly not for girls' nights, and is feeling isolated. I've tried to get her to take up hobbies, attend classes, etc., and she has tried, but eventually it all seems to die away and we're left with her feeling down. So, she moved to her new job and she perks up as it's a challenge, something her old place wasn't offering her, and she's enjoying it. She also gets on really well with a guy there who she has to work with as he does stuff that ties into her work. Over the first few months it's just normal, then I hear loads about him every day as he's the only one she really talks to. So much so that after a few months he is told that he needs to stop the talking. She never is, or he will have to move. To make sure they can still have a laugh, which I fully appreciate and am fine with, they decide to use Google Hangouts via Gmail, but also the app on the phones. After about a week of this, it feels like it's now crept into every evening as well. My wife tells me that they're just work friends who get each other and have the same sense of humor, but that's it. Over time, and a few arguments, I told her it felt like she was almost reliant of these messages and him. I got told I was being stupid, but I can't shake the feeling. She said things like he makes me feel like the old me and that kind of stuff. If I bring it up though, she tells me that she didn't mean it like that and I'm twisting it. We've argued plenty and I'm trying to understand. She says he's just a friend and had now admitted he's probably one of, if not her actual, closest friends. I mentioned about it being a possible and she argued it until she went online to look what it was and conceded why it looks like that, but if it was just a low-level one. He can tell when she's upset and asks if she's okay and stuff. Her female friends don't see that anymore. Now, I love that she was enjoying work and making friends, but I can't help feeling that there are more feelings to this than she's ever going to tell me. He has a really jealous wife who won't allow him to speak to girls, especially my wife, at the work party. I'm sure she doesn't know how much they chat. Can my wife, or anyone's wife, be close to another guy with it just being friends? To me it sounds like the beginning of a DP, and we all know what that can lead on to. I don't want my wife to go back to being upset and depressed, but I don't want the only way for her not to being another guy she's getting close to. She refuses to stop contact as she doesn't want to make work awkward and enjoys a laugh. She also says that it's me causing my own feelings due to being depressed and low because of redundancy. If she stops being friends and then I get over it, she doesn't want to resent me. It's an awful mess leading to numerous arguments and it's hurting us both. Am I in the wrong with my feelings? Any advice, please? I must have thought everything written here, but I want more than anything to believe that it's just a friendship. I fear it's too late and it's gone too far, not physical but emotional. The challenge now is to speak to her about it without a massive argument and find out how to move forward, either as one or separately. She is putting herself ahead of me and our marriage. I can cope with it ahead of me normally, but I am going through a bad time and there is just no support there. Apparently the old me would have been fine with it, while the new me, which I don't see as different, isn't. She does tell me about everything and knows I have passwords to all her accounts so can see the chat. She does ask that I look with her, but I could look anytime if I chose to. And she tells me she can't live without me or us as we've been together for so long and she loves me so much. She can't even begin to imagine life that way. It just seems that there is this one thing she is so picketed about and it's him and messaging him. She says nothing has or will ever happen and I should trust her to know and deal with it if he did ever make a move. I'm probably worried about my actions causing irreversible damage due to being told a lot that it's all in my head to my current feelings, like work and stuff. I need to man up and take the bull by the horns. So, we had the discussion. It involved lots of tears, screaming, shouting, and actually afterwards seems to have cleared the air. We have boundaries in place which include things being removed off phones and times it's appropriate to contact people. Not through asking, but we have complete access to each other's accounts and it all seems to be much better, so thanks all. One thing that does still irks me. I've seen it on a few lessons that people have said don't confront too early. I can't help but feel I have. I've accused, put my foot down and done other things, but having had things explained, read messages and looked at timings and such, I honestly believe that I may have gone too early. I don't think I was wrong in any way, but fear that by confronting when I did, I may have postponed what was happening and push it deeper underground. Just going to have to keep my eyes open for anything strange and follow it up quietly. Comments: if your gut is telling you that this relationship is inappropriate, then it is inappropriate. You're the one that gets to decide what is inappropriate behavior from your W. I also don't have a problem with you confronting now. You have put your W on notice that you are uncomfortable with her relationship and you can learn a lot about exactly where you stand in her eyes by watching what she does next. If she significantly scales back contact, then your message was received. However, if contact continues at the same level or your gut screams that they are being secretive, then you know you have a real problem on your hands. Don't ever question yourself about being too proactive. You have changed the dynamic. I'd make a few notes. Actually, write them down, as her memory may, strike that, will change over time. And don't venture down a slippery slope of her stepping over the boundaries. 1 inch over is over. I agree with the others. Contact the other man's wife and fill her in. She deserves to know that her old man is hunting, grooming at least one other woman, your wife. OP responds. Keeping it brief, it was deletion of the messaging app and no contact outside of work hours. Family first and complete openness, which I firmly believe there to be. Contact in work isn't a problem, as I know they have to work together, but that's where it stays. I've also asked her to make an effort with her female friends to reignite their friendships, and she is doing that. As it stands, I'm happy and we feel to be back on track with time set aside for us. 1 night a week where we go out for a date night. I'm keeping my wits about me and will remain weary for a while. I spoke to her about contacting OMW. I don't have details to do it though, and said if it continued it would be the first thing I did. I know many will say I should do it now, but as it stands, where there is no proof or anything, it would be my word against his and could cause problems at work. To some that may all seem tame, but I know myself, my wife, and our relationship best, so I'm good with it. If it changes, I'll be straight on it. A year later, speaking to my wife last night, she mentioned a colleague at work. He sounds like a decent enough chap but can be over-friendly when chatting. He's open conversations with things like morning gorgeous, and just yesterday I saw a chat that began morning beautiful. They use Hangouts as a communication tool at work. She's been completely open about it and said, he's just that type of guy. He works in their London office and she in a regional one. They've met once at a company meeting and it wasn't for long, so there is no way I think anything at all is happening, but it still doesn't sit right, someone talking to other people's wives like that. He's married with kids as well. She discussed it with her colleague, who said she thought it was a bit over-friendly and wouldn't be pleased about it. What do you guys think? Worth pointing out that, not sure if anyone remembers my story, but I believe my wife had an E with a guy from her previous job. She just believes they were close friends. Caused lots of hurt and upset, but we're through it and all is fine. This could be just a trigger and something that I'm super sensitive to. I know how I need to proceed and what I need to do. Just FYI, I have indeed got a job. Got my self-confidence back, mostly, and things have been good. My plan is to watch quietly for now and step in when I feel it's required. As has been said, she told me openly and honestly about it. There was no need, as I would never have known otherwise, and I don't want to discourage that. I don't for a minute think this is an EA. That's not to say it won't develop, so I will watch. I have spoken to my wife, who says she didn't think it was an issue and apologized. She will let him know to behave more appropriately, which I thanked her for. If something needs to be said, done, it will happen. At the moment I'm comfortable with being told and watching. We've discussed it and she understands my feeling and will act on them. Like comment, it sounds like you have a good handle on this. It's extremely common to run into guys who act this way. Your wife seems to have taken it in stride and just let it roll off. Assuming she does tell him to be more professional, you guys should be fine. Story 2. The fall. I got divorced several years ago, and at the time I was completely demoralized and even ex at times and made bad decisions. My ex-wife cheated on me and filed so many motions that by the time we got in front of the judge the last time, I had no money and no faith in my attorney because she got so many orders in her favor during the previous court appearances, and he just kept postponing and delaying working on other cases that were more important than mine. So, I went that last time pro se meeting, no attorney, and signed an agreement that my ex and her attorney said was fair and the basic agreement that everyone signs when they get divorced. I didn't really question it, and to be honest, didn't even read the whole thing because I had to get back to work. I was already in trouble for missing so many days. I was under an extreme amount of pressure from my job and could not take another day off. I admittedly did not read the entire document, as I was told it was a standard agreement by my ex-wife. It says specifically husband shall be barred from making an application to reduce or terminate alimony based on any future cohabitation, and wife shall be barred from making an application based upon husband's cohabitation. I was making about $130,000 until I lost my job last month with little prospects of employment for the near future. I have sent out dozens of resumes, but no one is hiring old-timers like myself. After losing my job, I filed a motion again pro se to modify the alimony, and I was shocked when at the last court appearance, the judge stated although the PSA is inequitable and benefited my ex 100% and no benefit to me, since I signed it was not subjected to modification. At the time I just wanted to be divorced and was missing too many days at work and had no money left for a lawyer, so I just signed. I begged my ex-wife to give me a break until I find work, but she just sent me back a laughing smiley saying, "Enjoy prison." She is so cold and heartless. I cannot believe a woman I once loved would treat me this way. I am begging and am desperate for help. I feel like I may have a nervous breakdown. Also, she told my children I am a lousy father because I want to get out of paying her the money she is due and they aren't talking to me now. When I lost my job and begged her, she said, "I'm telling the children you quit your job to get out of paying me." She hasn't even had a job even though the court said she must get a job of at least $25,000 for which she is capable. She never even tried and the judge doesn't even address that. They don't give free consultations in my area. Minimum equals $300 and I cannot even believe what I am told from past experience. I am in the negative these past few years. I wasn't making the amount the support was based on and have gotten deeper in debt. I am truly into the negative. Cannot afford an attorney and don't even know if they could help, which is why I am asking for free advice. I'll never make as much as I was making before in a related field. I don't want to say what I am trained in because I read you cannot always delete what you write if someone quotes it, so let's just say that even in my current profession, which I can't even find work, and I was making less. And there's nothing I can work at that would come close to what I was even making with the income reduction before I lost my job. It's hopeless. I understand that, and all I can say is that it's one of the states that still supports permanent alimony. But it usually terminates with cohabitation or death of either spouse, and my agreement specifically forbids that, but I didn't realize it said that because I was promised by my ex-wife and her lawyer that the agreement followed state statutes, and I believed them. My state also is known to throw non-payers behind bars and doesn't care about whether they have a good reason. Involuntary job loss. My ex-wife is laughing at me when I ask her to give me a break, even though she lives with the guy and he works. It's like my money is for their entertainment after the bills are paid with his income, and she just sit around all day watching daytime TV shows while I struggle to put food on my own table and stay outside the bars. I have been to several therapists over the years, and all of them inferred or outright stated something is wrong with me and even gave me some diagnosis, but I don't agree. Mental illness is largely just a label that allows people to do whatever they want. If anything, my ex-wife is the mental case, not me. I also wanted to add that since I didn't pay the support this month for the first time ever, it's always paid by the first for over 10 years without fail. Now she is blowing up my phone, calling and texting and yelling and screaming in messages and angry texts with mad smiley faces. I ignored until I finally said, "What part of I don't have a job and I don't have any money don't you get, you fat, smelly, cheating, lying b?" It made it even worse, I know, but I just lost it. I don't trust lawyers at all, that is true. I plan to listen to what they tell me during the free meeting, and I may or may not hire them, or I may or may not just use what they tell me to plan my own strategy when I go back to court. Just because I made a big mistake once doesn't mean I will do worse if I represent myself. All the lawyers will do is say the same things. I can say the agreement was unfair, it was made under duress, and it significantly differs from state laws. Plus, anything else they tell me they would say. It's not really that complicated. I was served with papers for contempt of court because I am a whole 2 weeks late in support payments after an unblemished track record. The case will be heard next week. I'm a bit concerned because it's in front of the same judge who admonished me for self-representation and sort of warned me that if he sees me in his courtroom again, I might not be going home that day, but I saw it as an empty threat because what can he do to me? But now things are a bit different. Based on my understanding of this sort of thing, I plan to file a cross motion to modify support, which essentially will say not only do I disagree with her contempt for non-payment, but furthermore I request a decrease in my support to zero due to job loss out of my control. As you may suspect, I did not learn anything from the attorney consultation I didn't know before other than retainer fees are going up. I discovered I can borrow against my retirement, not wasting that hard-earned money on lazy, incompetent lawyers. I plan to do that and hand her a big fat check for the overdue alimony, and also next month in advance, just to show I'm a stand-up guy in front of the judge, who will then hopefully rule in my favor, and that will be my last 2 support payments I will be ordered to pay. Ever. Update. Well, I'm back. After a 30-day stint in the local lockup, filled with drug addicts, guys who committed assault or domestic violence, robbers, psychopaths, you name it. There were even people in there convicted of armed robbery. For a local lockup, there were some bad people in there, and the experiences I had will haunt me for the rest of my natural life. You'd think they'd have put me in with other nonviolent offenders, but either the system is messed up or there's no room. They just don't care what happens to non-criminal, law-abiding citizens such as myself who have gotten into a bit of trouble by no fault of their own. Possibly the judge had it in for me and wanted to teach me a lesson. I did some more research while I was in there and discovered most judges hate people who represent themselves because we supposedly do not know the proper procedures, which of course I most certainly do. He was not happy to see me back in his courtroom. His first words to me were, "You again? What did I tell you would happen if I saw you in my courtroom again, especially without a lawyer?" I stood my ground and told him that 1, it is every American's constitutional right to defend themselves as they see fit, and 2, I am not going to be bullied by someone who thinks they can say and do whatever they want just because they wear a black robe and hold a little wooden hammer that couldn't even drive a nail into a 2x4, and 3, I was misled into signing an unfair agreement, and 4, I have no ongoing means to pay, although I have a check right here from my retirement account. Pay the arrears. The judge looked at me and said, "Is that all you have to say for yourself?" I had a sudden feeling of forbidding that things would not go well. I shot a glance at my ex-wife and her attorney who looked so damn smug, and then the judge said 30 days in lockup, and if you come here again because you're in arrears it's going to be at least double that amount of time. Hand the check to the bailiff. The judge summons the bailiff to the bench, whispers in his ear. The bailiff comes over, takes my check, handcuffed me and pulled me out of the courtroom, and I was ultimately brought right behind bars without any opportunity to put my affairs in order. I tried to protest that I live alone and have no one to attend to my matters, but my words fell on deaf ears. They took all my personal items, subjected me to a very unpleasant body cavity search as if I was some sort of danger, and I spend the next month among some horrible individual that seemed to make being in there some sort of a game or power trip, and I was honestly shocked at the way I was treated and how the guards turned a blind eye. I was so looking forward to getting home, and as soon as I opened the door to my apartment the stench hit me. The poor cat tried to claw its way out under the door and did a fairly good job of it, but didn't quite make it. She was hard as a rock and frozen in her last position, with one claw in front of the other as if she just gave up in the middle of trying. I didn't mean to laugh, but the cat looked so funny frozen like that I giggled hysterically for about 10 minutes, but my mood was more somber when I discovered all my tropical fish are gone and the water so cloudy you couldn't even see to the back of the fish tank. Now I have to think about how to handle matters going forward. Job prospects are non-existent. I'm in the negative in my bank accounts, and the only money I have left is in my retirement. I could give her the support out of that, but I don't think I'm going to give in to the pressure. I'm going to sue the courts for a change of judge due to personal bias and just dislike. They have no right to just throw you in with no warning. My comment: OP really should have got a lawyer instead of talking to a judge directly. Don't be like this, OP, and don't blindly sign an agreement. Story 3. I've been separated for 3 months and just received a temporary custody order and awaiting a final trial, and my ex got sole physical custody of our 2 young girls, 5 and 18 months. Since the day we split up and I moved out, she has been keeping the girls from me whenever she gets angry or wants to upset me. In the beginning she would give me mixed signals about wanting to get back together, only to shut me down when I tried. Recently things have gotten worse. The weeks leading up to our conciliation hearing I made several attempts to discuss custody with her, as we both wanted to avoid the courts and all the lawyer fees, but she would sabotage the conversation by arguing. We would argue almost every time we spoke during the transition, with dropping off and picking up the children. Now that the temporary order is in place and it's in her favor, she refuses to talk with me at all about how to avoid trial and come to a better agreement. I have a feeling that she is trying to keep my involvement as little as possible. She wants me to see them every other weekend only. She has been holding the children away from me and extremely disrespectful and rude and at times manipulating. Everyone I talk to clearly sees that she has issues and thinks she has developed a mental problem, including our therapist. Everyone tells me to move on, stop talking to her, don't let her get to me, etc. I just can't. She broke up with me, has used my girls as weapons against me, acted in such a horrible way towards me, and even tried everything she could to make sure the courts granted me as little time with my girls as possible. I still want to find a way to get back with her, for many reasons, and I realize this is part of my problem. The thought of having to have my children part-time forever scares me, paying child support while trying to maintain my own household. The thought of her getting into another relationship and eventually living with another man who will be with my girls more than me because she gets more time is also more than I can bear at this time. I started seeing another woman, but I am not interested. I can't stop wanting to get back with my ex, and she doesn't want to and treats me horrible. Why I want her back and can't get over her I just can't figure out. I definitely love her more than anyone I have ever been with, but I can't understand how I can take this abuse and still want to be with her. I separated from my ex 3 months ago and are in the process of literally fighting over custody of our 2 young daughters, 5 and 18 months. A temporary custody order has given her sole physical custody of them, giving me on every other weekend and a few evening visits for a couple hours. Before this order we had been in total disagreement on how much time I should have. Being very much involved with our children since birth and not wanting to separate. I wanted equal parenting time, she wanted it all. In the beginning she told me she still loved me and gave me mixed signals about getting back together. But things kept getting worse between us to the point where we argue almost every time we communicate. Since the day I moved out, she has been holding the girls from me. In the beginning she denied all access to them until I filed for custody. Then I was given very little time, no sleepovers. The order is in, and I still got very little time, 4 overnights a month. This is just what she wants, and I want to get more time with my girls, but she won't discuss this with me. I want to reconcile for many reasons. Fear of the future being a separated dad, seeing my children, a lot less than her, surviving financially when paying her support. The thought of her bringing another man into the house and that man living with my girls more than I do because she has more time. All these thoughts fill my mind almost all the time. I have made every mistake you can in trying to reconcile. I won't list them, just know I have made them all. She doesn't talk to me about anything. She is very mean to me and disrespectful. All the signs are there that she hates me and has no interest in reconciling, but yet I still want to. I have started to date someone as in went on 2 dates and kissed once, but I am not interested. At this point I don't know what to do. I am stuck. Everyone tells me to move on. She treats me poorly. I just can't seem to move on or make my heart move on. I'd ask for advice, but I have heard it all before and it's all correct advice. How can I make myself move on when something inside of me is refusing to let me? Honestly, how can I fix this relationship and be a family again? I am taking the steps needed with keeping a journal, documenting everything, and asking my lawyer to seek the evaluation, and am prepared to pay the legal fees. I already have a new house completely furnished with separate bedrooms for each child. I recently took a better paying job also. I realize that this relationship is over and know what I need to do to move on. The problem I am having is that I just can't seem to do it. I was at a point where I felt good, was accepting of the situation and ready to move on, I thought. After losing the preliminary custody order, the temporary order, I have reverted back to wanting to find ways to develop a better relationship and co-parent. I want to be friends and have her want to share our children's time more evenly. Although she has never wanted things to be equal, she wants to keep the girls all the time and even lied to the courts to get custody order in her favor. It is crazy, it's so obvious, but I refuse to believe it, and I am making it worse every chance I get by continuing to try to talk to her, email and text her. I realize I am doing it, try to stop, and make the same mistake again. Honestly, I think the fear of losing my children to every other weekend is my biggest concern. She has been able to keep the girls from me since we separated, and I have not been able to stop her. Even filing for custody first, she was able to manipulate the courts and still got what she wants. So far, I have been powerless to stop her controlling how I see my children, and that irks me. Friends and family, I have started spending time with them. I have been into fitness my whole life, and I work out 4 or 5 times a week until recently. I was doing much better until 3 weeks ago when this first custody hearing was getting close. And since the hearing 3 days ago and how I lost anything close to 50 over 50, and she won exactly what she wanted and has my girls most of the time with no intention of giving it up, I have begun to feel helpless, angry and defeated. The mere fact that she doesn't support an equal parenting relationship kills me. I see all the things that she has done to me, especially her trying too hard to limit my time with the girls to only every other weekend and not considering that my role as a parent is important. This view is also hurting my girls who need both parents in their lives, and she is fighting me to stop me from equal time. I see all this and somehow I refuse to accept it and try to get back in her good graces like a whipped dog who is beaten by his owner but still comes cowering back looking for affection. I have always been a confident man who has never had a problem with getting women to respond to me. I just don't know what happened and why I can't accept the reality and do the right thing. I guess I could have clarified on this, so there is assumption that needed to develop a mental problem to invoke sympathy among readers. Because breaking up with the father of your children and then deciding you're going to keep the children away from father because you don't like him anymore, and you can be reason enough to empathize with my position. Postpartum depression and extreme elevated estrogen levels were terms thrown around by a therapist we both see often and developed during her second pregnancy. As far as what she is telling everyone she knows, I'm pretty sure it's the same thing she is telling me she discovered about me. He is a narcissistic, emotionally abusive person who is incapable of love. He tricked me into loving him, drained me emotionally and physically until I had no more to give. He is emotionless and self-centered and only cares about himself. Oh, did I mention he is bipolar trash with manic tendencies? I can tell you this because I assure you, other than being diagnosed with bipolar disorder as a teenager and being guilty of being in pain from time to time, the rest of that is a far stretch to say the least. I realize there could be some codependency here. I am honestly getting tired of allowing myself to get stuck in these emotions and wish I was able to not care at all about how she feels, what she thinks about me, and who she may or may not be sleeping with. I know the thought of another man moving into her home where my daughters sleep when she has them more than I do, so by default that guy lives with my girls more than I do is the hardest thought to comprehend. My comments: let your lawyer know you have concerns about her mental health and request she have an evaluation. Also let the lawyer know she is withholding your children from you. Once your custody plan is legally in place, she will no longer be able to do that. She will be in contempt of court if she tries. OP need to know how to hire lawyers. There's a reason why they get paid.